Welcome to Market Recap. My name is David Jacobson, and you can find us on the Pcarmarket Live YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button for your podcast episodes and weekly market recap and so forth. This format was created to talk about what's sold and why, the Porsche market trends, and more. So I think you'll find this very interesting. Our time is going to be split between that and also talking about your questions regarding auctions, deal tank, and some other important information about what we do and how you get involved. Today we have two guests. One is the Pcarmarket's very own Jim Barry, our senior VP, and Kevin Ginsberg, who is an experienced dealer, collector, auction expert. He's also a frequent seller on Pcarmarket, and for a subjective experience, he's not on our staff, and we thought that he'd be a great perspective for everyone to hear as well. So welcome.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Morning. Welcome, Jim. So let's get right to it. You know, we're going to talk about some of the cars that sold on here recently and even some of the ones that maybe didn't sell. You know, sometimes that's important of why, whether it be the market, whether it be the presentation. So we're going to share some stuff, some inside secrets that may help everyone to better use our platform. So the first car we're going to talk about is the 82 Porsche Targa that sold. By the time this goes live, it will have been about a week. So we know the car, Jim?
Sure. Yeah. Beautiful car.
Beautiful car. But here's the thing, and this is a great example to start with, and I have it up on my screen. We'll show it. This is the epitome of a car that was presented well. Yes, it's a nice car. It's a nice car. But we always say to everyone that pictures and words really are all we have. And this car really epitomizes taking advantage of that. Beautiful photos that really accentuate the car's beauty. But also showing some of the flaws, which is very, very important, and also the write-up being very thorough with the information provided by the seller. So talk about that car for a minute, Jim, and why did it do so well, and what does it mean for people that are looking to put their car on?
Well, it goes without saying the presentation of that car and the pictures and the photos, the way it was displayed was second to none. You know, the buyers got the information they needed on that particular vehicle. But certain cars just have that it factor that you can't explain. It's got that package. People know it's authentic. It's not fake. It's real. And that car just screamed, you know, buy me. Everything looked rich and nice and high quality, even down to the Porsche Classic radio, which sometimes that just gives a real sign that nobody was really cheap with the car.
And by the way, talk about that is, you know, the Porsche radio, that shows that someone cared about the car. I know when I see a Porsche radio, the new Classic, it just means the person was willing to invest in the car and went over and above.
That's right. No shortcuts.
It's amazing, right? Yeah. Kevin, you agree with that?
I totally agree. Absolutely. Yeah, whenever they're trying to keep it authentic with Porsche parts, even if they're trying to upgrade the car to a little more modern technology, they're spending a little more money, but they want to keep it authentic. It makes a huge difference. Yeah,
it does. But also, you know, Jim, you said that this car had a lot of appeal. How much of it was the car, and how much of it was the presentation?
Well, I'd say it's 50-50 on this one, because you could do really good photography on a car that, you know, maybe isn't as nice in person as it looks in the photos, but between the way that car was photographed and how nice the car was, the fresh paint, you know, all the things in the interior that were corrected before the sale, you know, I just think those two things are brought together to knock that one out of the park.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the photos, and you're right. Well, first of all, black is great, but when you get a black tan car, it pops. And this particular car now that dashboard, that is not typical.
No, it's not. That's what made it special too. Yeah.
So there are things that when you have something unique, it stands out, and it really does lend. However, we have seen very special cars that we've had to pull teeth getting information, and the pictures are really subpar. And that also could take something that's special and even downplay it and really almost ruin a great opportunity, you know?
That's right. That's right. Like you said, we have photos and words.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I want to move on to Kevin, your car.
Sure.
We actually sold this car a few days ago, and it was a 08 GT3 in silver, my favorite color.
Right.
And so tell us about the car. How did you feel the way it did? Now here's Kevin sold this car, and again, you always provide very nice pictures, and you work well with our staff. We have writers on here and we have photo editors that bring these. We do the best we can to take whatever package we get and present it beautifully, but you're easy to work with, so we appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about how that car was presented for you, and were you happy with the outcome?
I was happy with the outcome. But, you know, talking a little bit about the presentation, when I photograph, and I do all my own photography, so I'm looking at the car the way I want to see it.
Great.
And I have a little background in photography, so it helps, because you have guys who want to see a car a certain way, but they'll still take a picture and cut half the car off because they don't know how to take the picture. But, you know, lighting, presentation, angles, that all makes a big difference. So getting the car out there to the public so they can see everything that they need to see the way they want to see it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and before you go on, because I want to know more about that, that's one of the things that's important for everyone to know, is that we provide a internal assistance.
Yep.
We will even have a photographer go out if we need to, but we also provide people on angles and composition and how to take these photos.
Sure.
So not that you needed the help, but that's extremely important.
Well, actually, one of your guys helped me a lot. I mean, I've been taking pictures of cars my whole life, but my interior shots I felt were a little weak, and one of the guys on your staff, Dylan actually, called me one day and said, hey, why don't you find a shady spot outside? Because I was using lighting inside to shoot the interiors. I was always shooting the exterior outside. And, you know, we started talking, and I did a couple, and I sent him some pictures, and he's like, they show so much better.
Incredible.
So I actually, from someone who has experience doing it, you can always learn. Someone, you know, from a different point of view, you know, you're looking at it yourself, you see it a certain way. Someone else looks at it, and it changed the way my interior pictures look.
Awesome. Awesome.
And so I've carried that on to everything that I do.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always easy to find the right shady spot, but
No, it's not. But one of the biggest tricks on the interior photos are leaving the opposite door closed.
Yes.
We always see photos come in with both doors open because people think the light's going to come in, it's going to be. No. But when that door is closed, you're seeing the interior in a whole. And major point, leave the doors closed when you take interior photos, unless you're taking an outside shot that you want to show the door panels and stuff.
Same with
like
the sunroof.
Same with the sunroof, yes.
You know, convertible top, you want to take it both ways, top up, top down.
Yep.
But, you know, any way you can let less direct sunlight into the interior, you're better off. You're going to get a better interior shot taking it outside.
Yeah, so finish, and I interrupted you, but talk a little bit more about the sale, how that went. And
So, you know, it was interesting. I had the numbers on this car stayed very, very low for the first 3/4 of the auction. And Jim and I even talked about it. I'm like, I don't know, what do you think is going on? It's a GT3. This is a 13,000-mile car. But I had a lot of people reaching out to me directly about the car through the auction site. A lot of questions. I mean, one guy, you know, sent me a list of 30 questions on Sunday night, which, you know, I took the time, and you answer them, and you do the best you can, and you go back and forth. You let them know if there's more questions, or if I didn't answer it properly, or didn't give you what you need, please reach out to me. But a lot of communication on this car without a lot of bidding initially, which isn't always the case. Usually you see a decent amount of activity in bidding and not a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions about this car. So, you know, and even after the fact, people reached out to me and said, oh, I should have bid more, or I missed it, or whatever, because I think the car was very well bought, and I think it was well sold. You know, there's always, as I refer to them, the hecklers who Monday morning quarterback, it should have been more, it should have been, you know, the quality of buyer here was very strong, and I could tell they were not generic questions for the most part. Did I get a couple, like, you know, was the IMS bearing fixed on this car? And I answered very politely, different car. And I explained the difference of the Mesger engine versus this and why it doesn't have that. But for the most part, real quality questions. And everybody said, listen, you displayed the car beautifully. The pictures show it. And because they show it so well, we're wondering, are we missing something? Are we missing a flaw? Are we missing this? And, you know, the key is to be able to answer them and give them some more detail. The auction buyer, a lot of these people are new to this process. And when they feel like they can be interactive, I think it actually gets them going a little bit.
You know, absolutely. And these people that have, Jim and I are shocked on the amount of first-time auction users that are coming to our site. That's very, very refreshing, because you have all the people that came from Bring a Trailer, or people that came from RM and all these other auction houses, and that's typical. They do the circuit and they're involved in that they're comfortable with that. But when you get people that have never gone to an auction before, that register 10 minutes before they bid, and they win the car or they don't win the car, but now they're involved in this, they realize this is probably the safest way to buy a car, because look at all the interaction, the questions that are asked. And I think as in a whole, with the quality of buyer and bidder and seller we have, there's some good banter and good questions that expose things. And I always said, if you're going to try to fool someone in selling a car, you better go somewhere else, because to get through our system and get it live and then deal with our people, our community that's going to call you out, you better bring the truth, and you better bring, you know, all the answers to the questions. So, and that sale finalized well. I understand that guy.
Yeah, and he sends back the paperwork signed within minutes.
Yeah, he was excited.
And says, I said, well, you know, I know it's 4th of July weekend. Yeah. I don't know what your schedule is. When would you like to get the car? He goes, well, I'm leaving on Friday, and I want to take it with me.
Oh, yeah.
I said,
that's my kind of guy.
I said, all right, what's your schedule look like? He said, can I get there around noon tomorrow? So literally, the auction closed at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. He was at my shop noon on Thursday.
Well, you know, this is why we do what we do. So he took it on vacation or went for a ride. Yeah. That's fun. That's
so
fun,
his son drove him out. He came in, he asked a couple more questions about the car. He got underneath it with a flashlight, because now it was in person and he could do that.
Yeah.
And we went over a couple things, signed a couple documents. I pulled the car out, and I filled the tank for him, and I said, now have a good weekend. And,
you better stop. Now you're spoiling all the bidders.
But you know what? I said to him, listen, go drive it and have fun.
Go drive. Well, you're again, the same way that we send out tutorials on how to take photos, there is a tutorial on how to be a good seller.
Sure.
If you are responsive, and we're going to actually take the second half of this and go through things like that, which are very important, like responding, and the control is really in the seller's hands here.
100%.
It really is. So we'll get into that, but just to move on, because this is one that Jim and I really talked a lot about, and I think we're going to share some important information for those that are listening, and that is on the 2016 GT3 RS that was originally Jerry Seinfeld's car. And we have some information we want to share, because there's this particular car is, again, as I mentioned, the 2016 GT3 RS. The original MSRP on this car was $449,000, because Jerry himself ordered the car from the factory, obviously with everything, and it was a special chrome.
Blue metallic.
What's the
silver?
The silver. But what's that paint?
Liquid silver.
Liquid silver. And there were questions that started, how is this car so expensive? And that was, people had to figure their way around that, understanding the car and why it was so expensive. But I just want to lay the groundwork here so everyone knows, because we see the comments, whether it be on Pelican Parts or whether it be on Ren List, or whether it be on Facebook, and we take it very serious. We are very, very serious about our reputation. We care a lot when we see something that's written that is not true. We have a hardworking staff that works tirelessly to get things right. And we're not perfect, but we do our best. And a lot of the comments are, everyone said had thick skin, because you're going to get a lot of people that just say things that are unfounded. And, there's also malicious people out there, no joke, obviously. And, that's life. But this was worth bringing up, right, Jim? Because this car was bid, and the seller of the car had a certain reserve on the car. The car originally, when it was first on there, a month before it actually sold, got up to about $300,000.
$298,000 approximately.
$298,000, and I'm just going to lay this because I want you to explain this. And then what happened was the car didn't sell. And at that time, the owner said, I'm not accepting, my reserve is higher, and I'm not lowering it. This is where I want to be. And he had the right to do that the same way we all have the right to a reserve. Whether we agree or not is separate, okay? But that was the reserve. So the car falls short of reserve, and then the car sits in there for a month, and the owner has some second thoughts and says, hey, I'm going to let Jim explain. I want to sell this car. Reach out to the highest bidders and see if they're still interested, and just sell the car. I'll sell it for less. Whatever reason, whatever motivation. Okay, and we're not here to judge of why, who, when, where. We're just here to get things done, as long as it's fair and equitable for everyone to get things done. So, Jim, just explain how that went down. And, again, this is to answer a lot of the questions of what we see out there in social media, not understanding what happened here and people prejudging. And it's not just to defend ourselves. That's not what it's about. What it's about is educating people to understand how authentic and real the auction format could be, and the real happenings behind the scenes.
Sure. Well, the first thing I'll start with is I don't blame people for saying things in that capacity, because that's what it looks like to the world, you know. So I maybe would say the same thing if I was on the outside watching.
Fair enough.
But at the end of the day, this is one of these things that, without taking up a lot of time, it was just a very rewarding situation and a fun situation, because this gentleman, who I'm particularly fond of, that was a seller of this car, he was very outside of this whole world of auctions and stuff like that. This is a guy who had a very, very nice collection, a true car lover. And he never wanted to be bothered with buying or selling a car at an auction. He would walk into a dealership, buy a car, and leave, and he'd want it delivered to his home and wanted that white glove service. And we actually met him in our circles, you know, because he is a pretty substantial collector. And we showed him the platform, and he's becoming more and more warm to it, to one day where he reached out and said, I want to sell this car. And we were excited to take it. And he had paid a price for it, and he was willing to lose a certain amount on it at the time. And it didn't get to those numbers, as David had said. And then a few weeks later, we had the COVID going on and all this stuff, and he said, you know what? He goes, there's just no room in my life for this car. I would like to sell it. And he goes, just get me something reasonable, and we're going to sell the car. And like David had said, I had reached out personally to all the bidders, some other collectors we know, and within 24 hours, we got it sold. And he was happy with the number, and he probably wouldn't have done it differently, just because, you know, you have to just be primed and ready, you know, to make these things happen sometimes, whether it's the buy or the sell. And that's pretty much how it went down, and that's the behind-the-scenes stuff, you know, that the world doesn't see, and you know, how could they know that, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt, and we actually sit there and watch this, and knowing what happened, and it could be, we're not going to lie, quite frustrating to see the misunderstanding that goes out there.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was well said that we understand. We understand, and there's nobody more. We are skeptics. We like to know the answers. We like to know the truth and what really happened in any situation that we see. So that was a great point. Now let's talk about another car, the 2019 Speedster. We have one in particular, but in general, we want to talk about the Speedster market. And again, it's changing rapidly. Boy, is it changing changing rapidly. So there's one particular that did not sell. It was a 90-mile white. I'm not a big white guy fan, but I am in love with this one. With the black wheels, the black interior, it's just a really, really nicely presented car. But it didn't sell, and I think you know, it's hard. But however, we also had another one last week. There was a kind of like a bidding war at the end. So Jim,
a big one, yeah.
So how do you figure that?
Well, you know,
both presented nicely, by the way, right? Both
yeah,
of them
sure.
presented.
That's just a timing thing, in my opinion. You know, you had two guys that obviously wanted that spec, because there really was little difference between the two cars. MSRP-wise, they were both new cars with delivery miles. Just one was silver and one was white. And
it was GT silver.
Yeah, GT silver.
Come on now, because I'm a, you know, we talk about colors all the time.
That's the best.
I don't care. You take your PTSs and all that, fantastic. I love GT silver. I'm a silver guy anyway, but that, to me, that's the greatest silver ever made. But so the market in general in Speedsters, we've seen them, the heritages with the kit,
the decals,
yep. And then a PTS and a regular. I mean, wow. Yeah. Talk about crazy. So what do you think?
Well, I just think it's a result of people trying to get in the mix and buy cars and sell them for a profit that aren't necessarily resellers of cars. They're not dealers, and they screw up the market that way. And you saw it happen with the GT2 RSs, and now it's happening with those cars. And, you know, at the end of the day, they're not Tourings. You know, they're expensive cars, where the Touring is such a good value for the money that, you know, they're going to go over sticker, under sticker, at sticker because of what you're getting for the price. But we're talking about a $300,000 car here. And, you know, people aren't so easy to just pay an $80,000 premium over what's already a lot of money. So, in my opinion, you know, it's a very special car. I don't think they're going to tank. But I think those premiums, the only reason to pay a premium is if you absolutely have to have one in a certain spec. But for the most part, they are definitely trading at or under MSRP.
Yeah. Yeah, and Kevin?
Yeah, no, I mean, the dealers now, you know, they are, if they get MSRP, they're happy.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who just went through the process and negotiated it right off the lot at a little bit below.
Well, listen, dealers would not be giving us Speedsters if they were flying off the lots. And, you know, but listen, our relationships with the new Porsche dealers has become very special and important to us, because we're getting these cars pretty much right off of the new as new, 25 miles, 50 miles, just registered. And when they go for fair prices like this is fun. This is fun.
Yeah.
When somebody could buy a car that, was selling for 60,000 over, and now all of a sudden you're buying the car. It's not fun for the guy that bought when it's 60 over, but it is actually a nice thing to be able to buy one of these with 50 miles at list or below list, right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's a win-win. And by the way, let's put it all in perspective. To sell that car at list, when you compare it to other makes and models, it's still a win. It's still a lot of money, and it's still a fair deal. So, but again, so that's the Speedster market. We'll continue to watch it. It is not something that you can put your finger on, because when you think you figured it out, it has changed.
It's too volatile still.
It's too volatile still.
It really is.
So you have to be careful. And one of the things to do is to go on to Pcarmarket, right? Check out Pcarmarket.com in the completed listings and see what they have sold for and what they stopped bidding at, and you can get a nice idea of where the market is. When we provide data to Hagerty, it's one of the things we do for their information that they provide to their users. So the data that we have is growing rapidly. There's a lot of cars on there that give you a real nice history. Sure. So I would urge anyone to check that out. And then finally, we're going to talk about the 3.6 turbo. So we had a white 3.6 turbo end about a week ago. And there's another market that skyrocketed through the roof, has come down to earth. I guess depending on the color, the condition, the mileage, there's a widespread of values on these cars. This particular car sold for a little over $170,000 with the fee, and some people said great deal, others said fair price, others said it was stolen. So again, people's perspectives are all over the place. But Jim, how did you figure that, and what's your thoughts about that process?
Well, considering how rare 3.6 turbos are, I'd say we had our fair share of them on the site, and we've sold quite a few of them. And a 3.6 turbo is not a 3.6 turbo. They're all different, and a lot of people just price them all like they're the same, and that's just not the case. When you get a paint to sample, when you get a sunroof delete, we did have 2 of them on the site, and they still brought over $300,000, which is very good money, in my opinion, at least. This particular car was definitely a good value, but again, a real seller. No markup. He was a private individual, loved his car, spent the money on it. He sold it to somebody for a fair price. If that was pulled into a Porsche store, probably could have sold for a little more. But, when you're a private person selling the car, I think he did much better than he would have done on a trade. And, they're all across the board, but it has to do with mileage, originality, service history, and then obviously the rarity of the colors and options.
Yeah, and what a great presentation. Again, this particular car went into... I'm going to mention this for you that are watching this. This car was in the deal tank. There's a program we have now, Jim, that allows people to put their car in the deal tank direct without going through the auction platform first, instead of going through the auction, and if it doesn't sell, it goes into Deal Tank. So in Deal Tank, you have unbelievable opportunities. This car sat in there and then was put through the auction format and sold for what's considered to be a fair price for everyone. So check out Deal Tank. Go right on to Pcarmarket. On the top, it says Deal Tank. Go in there. There is 100+ cars, anywhere from a donor car to a Turbo S to race cars. Super beautiful cars at really what I call seller-ready pricing, which means they've decided to sell the car. People have made comments in the thread, and it is a great place to look, shop, and buy a Porsche, Jim, no?
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, well, you better agree. Okay?
All right, I agree.
Okay, now that's a different perspective. So that's the 3.6 turbo. That's the market. We're going to continue to watch that as well. We love what we do, obviously. We love talking. We were just saying before with Kevin, when we were talking, this is like sitting around having coffee or having a beer and just talking shop, and it's so easy, right?
Daily routine.
It's like daily routine and fun. So, for the sake of time, we respect everyone's time and really thank you for really giving us your attention for a few moments. We want to talk about the Q&A. We're going to be taking live questions when we get this show live. Right now, we took some of the questions off of our
help desk.
For our help desk, and they're going to be questions that some of you have asked, and we're going to deal with one of those questions that comes up at auctions that I think you'll appreciate us giving our perspective on it, and that is, drum roll, please. I think I have some type of a sound effect here that gives me a drum. I'm going to try it. Don't make fun of me, but let's see what happens. No, that's not it. Hold on. No, that's not. No. Hold on. No, that's not.
not it.
You know what? I'll try this again later. So there is a cheering one. I'll get to that one afterwards. But the question is, all kidding aside, is should I be concerned about shill bids on auctions? And hey, listen, we talked about that briefly before with the Seinfeld car that had sold on our site. Let me start off by saying one thing, and I'll pass it over to you gentlemen. And first of all, 2 quick points. The 5% charge, everyone that bids has a 5% charge on their credit card. And if they are a winning bidder, they are charged the full 5% on their credit card as a charge. So anybody that's going to show bid a car that happens to get over reserve is immediately charged, and it's non-refundable for obvious reasons because there's a commitment to purchase. But also, and Kevin, you could probably add a good perspective on this, is that there are dealers buying cars.
Correct.
So if a car has a $60,000 reserve and the wholesale on the car is 50 grand, why wouldn't every dealer in the world bid up to 49, 50, 51 in the car? And then at the end users would bid over the wholesale. I call Pcarmarket the greatest place to buy a car because it's row-sale. It's between retail and wholesale. It is the fairest place to land.
Very accurate way.
Okay, right? And if you're going to bid on a car, you better expect at least every wholesaler, every dealer in the world is going to outbid you to get to at least a wholesale number on the car. Right. I mean, let's all be realistic. And then after the wholesale number is reached, the dealers are either going to win because the seller is willing to sell and there's no end user, or it's not going to meet reserve. And that's not a shill bid. That's a dealer.
And I sold a car a week ago on Pcar. It was a 2017 991 in GT Silver with Bordeaux interior. Car was stunning, sunroof delete car as well. Absolutely beautiful car. 13,800 miles, I think, on the car. Just the right example of that car, right equipment. And I do know that dealers, and you guys know this too, are having a real hard time finding pre-owned inventory right now.
Yeah.
So that helps the market a little bit too, because it's going to drive prices up a little bit for all of us. But, you know, I don't know as a seller who's bidding. You know, you get a crazy call sign, it could be Mama's Boy. You don't know who's,
right.
You know, what the name is and what it refers to. And it met my reserve. The car didn't go, I think it went 1,000 over my reserve. It didn't really go above the reserve. But again, I set the reserve. You guys accepted the reserve. And let me say that real quick too. You guys are really good at helping be realistic about the reserves. Obviously, you want the cars to sell on your site, and we want the cars to sell. But there's also a realistic market. And, you know, Jim and I talk a lot about it, and he always says to me, yeah, reserves are right on, don't worry about it. But I always call because I want to make sure it's going to benefit both of us. It's going to work for both of us. Because if I'm hard set on a reserve that I can't move and the car's not going to sell, what's the point?
Yeah.
It doesn't help anything.
Yeah.
So I sold this car a week ago. It hit the reserve. You guys send me the contact information. Danbury Porsche. I don't know that it's Danbury Porsche. I get on the phone with the guy. Super nice guy. Said I can't find good inventory. Your car looks gorgeous. It's exactly what we're looking for. Mileage, condition, options, the whole thing. I said, great, I'm happy for you. And the funny part about it being bought by a dealer is, and I think I mentioned this before, that night, I get an email through Pcar from a guy saying, I'm sorry I missed the auction. I really love this car, the color, the equipment. It's exactly what I want. If the deal falls through, please let me know. A very reasonable, very nice guy just said, you know, I don't know if the deals fall through ever or whatever happens, just please let me know. So I emailed him back real quick, and I said, hey, it might be your lucky day. I sold it to a dealer. So this car is still going to be available on the marketplace.
Yeah.
I got what I needed. The dealer now is going to be able to certify the car, which is going to help you as a consumer as well, because you're going to get a Porsche certified warranty.
There's very few times that we sell one car for a person that has multiple cars. You know, there is a one-time user, someone that buys a car every 10 years, they're going to buy a car and so forth. But the people that are either dealers or casual collectors that go in and out of cars, or big collectors that go in and out of cars, is they've come aboard.
Yeah.
And we've had collections. We have a lot of big collections coming down the pike. That's going to be fantastic, you know, from collectors that have accumulated cars over 30, 40, 50 years. So, Lake in Huntington, we're going to finish up with this one because, again, we can make these, these are going to be long formats unless we limit it here. But as a buyer, what happens after the auction and how do I protect myself? And just, I'll start it off with, buying cars far from home has become mainstream.
Yeah.
I don't care if you buy a classified. The world we've bought cars abroad from other countries, and it is very common that cars are purchased long distance. So that's been happening for years. So Jim, what can people do? How does Pcarmarket guide in helping people feel comfortable, at least, to give them the tools to make a good choice?
Well, the good news is 95% of the buyers know what to do. We get very, few people, but we do get people like this gentleman who reach out to the help desk, and we'll get on the phone and help them. But it's really just making a decision of if you're going to go in person and do the deal or if you're going to do it remotely. And then you make your checklist, you follow the steps, and you get it done. Make sure your paperwork's in line, make sure the payment is secure, and make sure that the person you're paying is the actual owner of the car.
Yeah, Kevin, how do people usually, what do they ask you after they buy a car?
Well, it's interesting. Not only after they buy the car, but often I will be asked the question before they bid on the car or buy the car. I get a lot. I would say more than 50% will reach out to me and say, what's the process if I were to win this auction? And I go through the process. I talk about the buyer's order. I talk about the odometer statement, the bill of sale, all the paperwork that I provide them, that I need their information, copy of a driver's license. I supply them with copies of titles. I explain the titles don't get filled out till the financial portion of the transaction is complete. But you see that we own the car. We have the title in our possession. The other interesting thing that I do, and I do it with social media, I don't ever post generally what I just purchased. I post on social media what I just sold, and I generally post a picture of it leaving my shop on a truck. And I've had a lot of people call me and say, hey,
interesting,
all your posts are cars going on Pcar or a carrier, and we both are huge Pcar fans, so we'll give them a little plug.
I was going to say thank you for that.
Yeah, that's all I use. When it's up to me, Pcar's the guy.
Yeah.
Nick is the best. Those guys are great.
Yep.
So, and I've had people say, every car is going on a truck. What do the people show up and look at the car and then they ship it? I said, no, they don't show up. They said, what do you mean they don't show up? I meet 5% of my buyers.
Yeah.
That's it. And I talk about you guys a lot. I said, listen, when I submit a car, there's a vetting process. You guys get on the phone with me, your staff or Jim, and we go through the details of the car and we make sure it's being represented properly, because not only would it kill me if it wasn't represented properly, it also affects you guys. Even though you're not selling the car, it's your platform. So people automatically associate that we're working together somehow.
Yeah, and we have a checklist, to your point, for every car submitted. Unlike a lot of other auctions out there, online auctions, we actually have a checklist that we speak to everyone. And we just ask questions, and we get a sense of who we're talking to, and we get documentation to back it up and so forth. And that is definitely an important thing going in. But also going out, we understand that there's people that this may be the first time, especially the first-time auction goers. And we always say, listen, always talk to someone on the phone and get a copy of the driver's license and the front and back of the title. If you get the front and back of the title, if you speak to them on the phone, and you get a copy of the driver's license and whatever other documentation is involved with the purchase of the car. Again, we have sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, actually almost 1,000 cars we're getting close to now in the first 19, 20 months in business. And we have never had anyone buy a car and the car did not exist. Right. Or be so grossly misrepresented. Now, we always learn. We're always making things better. But the process in which we start, if you have some basic rules to follow after you win the car, it's great.
One other quick point that I've done with 2 clients specifically. They won the auction. We hadn't spoken prior. I sent them a copy of the title. They sent me their driver's license, and then they said, hey, I don't want to offend you. And I said, you can. I'm a car guy. I've got very thick skin. They said, would you be willing to FaceTime and walk around the car with me?
Fantastic.
And so I'm FaceTiming live, showing my face, and then I'm scanning the car, moving in and out. And all of a sudden, oh, well, the paperwork exists, but he's leaning on the car. And those two guys, it was only two guys, but it was an interesting point because I've offered it to other people now. They were like, that's great. I'm so happy. That just put my mind at ease. What do I need to do next? I said, well, I sent you the wire info. Let's get it done.
Yeah, no, it's great. Listen, I think FaceTime is this. Yeah. With the technology that we have today, like you said, with FaceTime, how awesome is that? Show me the car, show me your face, show me the. I mean, open the door for me, pop the trunk, start it for me. It's good stuff. You have to be willing to do stuff.
I'm a face-to-face guy, so this industry has shifted away from that.
Yeah, right.
So that's actually now put a face to a name, which we all like, even though we're all wearing masks these days and everything. But face-to-face. This is the best alternative to it because all of a sudden they realize you're talking to a human being, a real person.
That's right.
On both ends.
That's right. And you know what? That's the way Jim grew up in the business. It's the way I grew up in the business, is face-to-face, working with people. And so I think that served us well while we put this together, is understanding some of the concerns that people would have and putting things in place that would be helpful.
Yeah, exactly. And you being willing to do that gives that level of assurance, because it goes without saying, and maybe not, because, I've bought thousands of cars in my life, it's the people who are hiding. Wire me the money, and then I'll have my escrow company release the car or ship it to your door. They don't even let you come see the car. You can't even speak to them. Those are the clear scammers that, they wouldn't even get on our site anyway because we have to talk to them. Yeah.
Well, wow, we can go on forever. This went longer than I expected. I hope we kept you all interested in this very important topic. We're going to continue to put these market recaps together, talking about what happened, cars, prices, market strategies, the temperature of the market for particular makes and models and so forth. So we wanted to just thank you, Kevin, so much for taking the trip here.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah. Anytime. I'd love to do it.
Okay.
Look forward to coming back.
You heard that, right? Anytime.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
I mean it.
Just not as long as no traffic, though.
And we'll pick certain days.
We'll pick certain days and times.
Today was a good one.
Jim, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you all for watching. Please check out Pcarmarket.com for the auctions. Check out the deal tank. And don't forget, I don't have it on now, but we have some really cool swag here. We have the shirts, the hats. We have also those really cool decals for your car now, the Pcarmarket, which talks about the heritage of the collector, the racer, and the enthusiast. So thank you so much. We'll see you next time.